So you want to be a tanker in Battlefield 4, huh? Well, let me tell you something, Hoss. It ain't as easy as just signing on the dotted line, getting your tanker boots, and heading into battle. Nah, you're going to need the knowledge, and you're going to need the skill to keep up, because we're actually going into battle. Not like those AA bitches that like to camp on the edge of the map up in the mountain somewhere. No, sir. We're heading in guns blazing. So, you better be ready, and you better know what you're bringing to the war front, and that's exactly what we're going to learn you today. We're going over 3 killer loadouts to help you dominate a server and best utilize your tank against enemy armor, infantry, or even air. And yes, I said air. There is a loadout to help you fight back against those pesky helicopters and jets, and it is absolutely awesome. But before we get to it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to support your favorite all-American freedom-loving gamer. Now, on with the guide. In our LAV video that I did a few weeks ago, I stuck with just one loadout. While the LAV is an extremely versatile platform, the main battle tank can be used for more specific purposes. As all tanks are outfitted to take on armor, you can choose which way your loadout leans, whether that be specialized for infantry, air, or other armor. I will say for that, it is always great to have a good gunner with a mic, and we'll discuss why later. I'll also advise running active protection as your countermeasure on all of these classes. So, for the first loadout, we have the Anti-Infantry loadout. You'll be selecting this loadout on close to medium range maps such as Siege of Shanghai, Zavad 311, Dawnbreaker, and other similar battlegrounds. This loadout is going to give you the ability to engage armor with a primary focus on kills and infantry. I'd recommend running the AP shell for this primary weapon. I looked all over the internet, and since this game has been out for so long, there are many conflicting reports on the damage profiles for each of the primary weapons on the main battle tank, so I had to go on an empty server and engage in a little bit of science myself. I've also heard conflicting reports on the splash damage of these shells, so without a scientific way to test it, I'll just have to tell you my own experience in the matter. But so far, the HE shell just doesn't make sense to run at all. Its damage profile is so much lower than the others. I'm going to post that on screen. We're just going to concentrate on the AP and the Sabo rounds. On top of that, the HE round has the lowest muzzle velocity also, which means it's very hard to hit long distance targets, and you'll have to significantly lead moving ones. So, the AP shell boasts a decent muzzle velocity of 200 meters per second. You'll have to lead your targets, but it's still going to be fairly reliable as a middle ground. It has a decent splash damage as well, which makes this the choice for the infantry loadout, and considering its damage profile isn't too far behind the Sabo rounds, it's going to be comparable in dishing out damage to enemy armor as well. On our secondary weapon, this may just be a personal opinion for me, but I like the canister shell. But this is the one where you can mix it up a little bit. You can run the LMG or the HMG. Always hating having to stay accurate on moving targets when it seemed to take several shots from the heavy machine gun to down them, as opposed to one carefully aimed blast from the canister shell. Of course, you can try the HMG for this loadout and see what you prefer. HMG is going to give you a little more range than canister shell, but I've pegged people from a pretty decent distance away with the canister shell, as you can see here. For optics, the infrared optics are perfect for lighting up enemy infantry and engaging them when you otherwise wouldn't see them. Not only is it great for spotting players, but landmines will also shine like beacons when infrared is activated. This has saved my life on multiple different occasions. For your upgrade, and this will go for almost all situations in this video, and that is using the reactive armor. Like I said before, this is going to help lessen the chance of an engineer landing a critical hit on you and immobilizing your vehicle. And remember, when it comes to staying alive, mobility is your best friend. Always equip reactive armor. You don't want to be a sitting duck on the battlefield in a target as large as a tank. Now, gunner optics are really up to the gunner on this one. Not a big deal, but if you do want to run zoom optics with this as the driver, I'd highly recommend your gunner using infrared. That way they can spot mines. That's probably the biggest thing right there. The gunner upgrade would easily be proximity scan. Since this loadout is mostly going to be deployed in close urban combat, it's important to always remain completely aware of your surroundings at all times. In close quarters, it can be easy for Jeep Stuff bandits to sneak up behind you and land a few C4 hits, putting you from full health to zero in about half a second. So, make sure your gunner is constantly using proximity scan and remind them from time to time to pop that, as it can be easy to forget. I'd say that this loadout is probably the one that relies the least on a gunner out of all of these. Since your gunner isn't going to be able to engage armor anyways, and your loadout is suited for infantry, you'll be already taking care of that role that is usually reserved for the gunner of taking infantry out. But make no mistake though, a good gunner in all of these classes can often make the difference in a nice long kill streak and a short-lived pile of rubble in the middle of the road. And just another quick tip that also applies to all of these loadouts, but especially this one: keep moving. Sitting still in crowded spaces gives the enemy extra time to line up rocket shots to the rear of your tank, get you C4'd, or rushed by enemy armor, so stay moving as much as possible. Next loadout on our list is the anti-armor loadout. This loadout is going to be useful on pretty much all map sizes that you want to engage armor with. The only difference is deciding which shell to use, the AP shell or the Sabo shell. I'd recommend the AP shell on close to medium range maps like Road Transmission, Lankang Dam, or Caspian Border if you want to retain some ability to engage infantry. If you don't have a gunner, this may be your best option. However, the Sabo shell has the highest muzzle velocity in the game at 265 meters per second, which means you can hit targets at extreme distances that the HE and the AP shell just couldn't hit, or would be extremely difficult. This makes the Sabo the primary choice for wide open tank maps like Silk Road, Firestorm, or Altai Range, as you're not going to have quite as many available opportunities for people with C4 to run up to you, and you're going to be focusing on mostly enemy armor anyways. I often run this when I have cowboy gunning for me, as the Sabo has absolutely awful splash damage. It's almost non-existent. You're going to have to score a direct hit on somebody to kill them, and I've found that when I'm basically in this, I really can't hardly engage infantry much at all. In real life, the Sabo shell is much the same. It's basically a depleted uranium toothpick flying through the air at Mach 5. So it deals all of its damage kinetically. So I usually advise, if you don't have a gunner, use the AP, and if you do have a good gunner, use the Sabo. Now for the secondary slot, I can't tell you how useful this staff shell can be. This shell travels in a very long, flat arc that hones into enemy armor or vehicles, doing 21 damage with every hit on the main battle tank as it attacks from directly above every single time. I'm telling you, one of the funnest things in this game is shooting a staff shell above a quad jeep or bike and watching it chase that SOB down, resulting in a one-hit kill ball of flames. It's fantastic. I also seem to get lucky getting the last shot on tanks rather routinely that are already hurting. I'm guessing this is probably because most tanks that far away are already retreating to repair, and the staff shell has the ability to reach out and touch them, and in some cases it just happens to be the last shot needed to take them out. Is this kind of an OP tactic that really doesn't require much skill? Yeah, but guess what? It's going to be used against you if you don't use it against them. Go tag some tanks with it. Now, for this loadout, for optics, I personally use the zoom optics. I find this great for aiming at longer range targets. If you're using zoom optics, encourage your gunner to use the infrared optics to help spot landmines. Cowboy has saved my butt on multiple occasions, yelling "stop" right before I almost ended both of our lives. And with this teamwork, I get to benefit from both the ability to engage long-range targets with my zoom optics and also spot landmines through communication with my gunner, who would be using the infrared. Now for the upgrade, once again, use reactive armor. You're going to need it while engaging tanks. For the gunner's upgrade, proximity scan is still at the top of the list, but since this won't be used in quite as close quarters as the infantry loadout, you can also use the incendiary by popping it in nearby windows and doorways to block access from engineers or shoulder-fired rockets. And this is good for being on the move if you're going through towns where people can pop out of doorways and stuff. This is good for the gunner to keep doing that. However, this does come with a caveat, and one thing I really want to highlight here: it doesn't do well in close range infantry heavy areas. Sure, it's going to take out enemies, but I've found that the bright flames from the incendiary can obscure the vision of the driver and the gunner, especially if they're running night vision or the infrared. Also, if the gunner deploys his incendiary too close to the tank and then hops out to repair you, he could be hit from his own incendiary. So those are some things to keep in mind. You want to use them with the appropriate maps for the appropriate situation. And last but not least is probably one of my favorites, just because of how hilarious it is when enemy air comes to take you out and they think that they have the advantage and they are so confidently just plowing you down with rockets Little do they know you're running this anti-air loadout. Extremely satisfying. So while tanks are not specifically designed to take on aircraft, this loadout is going to give you the best chance of taking those pesky 62 and 3 pilots out of the sky, or at least make them back off for a while until your team can push up and take a point. But considering the main turret of the battle tank can only rise so far, this loadout is best suited for medium to long range maps where pilots won't be diving straight down on you as quite as often. I found the most success here on Operation Firestorm, and the results have been hilarious to say the least, especially on the mountain up there. I shouldn't be telling you this because it's probably just going to be used against me, but up on the mountain you're more eye level with some of the pilots and you can lock onto them easier than trying to look up in the sky. As Battlefield 4 rewards teamwork though, you will need a gunner for this loadout, and especially it'd be great to have a gunner with a mic. Primary weapon without question is the Sabo round. I can't tell you how many helicopter kills I've gotten with this straight trajectory projectile. It's fast, and because of its muzzle velocity, it's much easier. Now I didn't say easy, but easier to hit helicopter pilots who get just a little too low and slow to the ground. AP shells, they can do it, but you're going to have a much higher success rate with the Sabo, I promise. Your secondary weapon, and this is where it gets interesting and a cooperative gunner is going to be needed, you're going to want to equip the guided shell for this one. While you're using the guided shell, get your gunner to use the gunner SOFLAM upgrade to laze targets in the sky and take out helicopters. Normally the guided shell will only lock onto land vehicles, but this will allow you to target aircraft as well. While jets are decidedly much harder to kill due to their speed and countermeasures, you can get mobility kills on helicopters, leading to their destruction if they can't pull out of the dive or land too hard. Or if they've got a couple hits on them anyways, sometimes you can get them in a nice, satisfying one-hit kill. I definitely recommend zoom optics for this loadout to better aim at some of these passing aircraft, and since you're going to be on some longer range maps in most cases. Now this is the one loadout that I will entertain the idea of changing this upgrade from reactive armor. If you're constantly getting locked on, if they get sick of your shit, when they're going to, they eventually will, and you can't even seem to peek out of the spawn without alarms going off, thermal camo may help you go undetected for a little while longer. This camo doesn't make it impossible for enemies to lock onto you, but it makes it take longer for the lock to occur. I run reactive armor first, and if lock-ons really get to be a problem, then I'd switch it up. Also, if aircraft is giving you a really hard time, you can equip the Stinger missile on your engineer loadout, so if you're forced out of your tank or your gunner is making repairs after one took a pass at you, you can hop out for a departing shot. Just make absolutely sure, please, make sure that no infantry is around you while you're looking up to the sky. Giving up a tank to the enemy team is extremely detrimental to the cause of winning the match. Also, make sure you both you and your gunner are running the repair torch. A gunner with no repair torch is about half as useful, or almost not at all, if he can't help you stay alive when you need it. Also, don't jump into a gunner's position if you don't have a repair torch. That goes for you too. Let somebody else who's equipped to be a gunner fill that slot. So, here we are. 3 epic loadouts to deal with different situations, maps, and targets. I genuinely hope this helps you out, as a lot of us are coming back to Battlefield against some battle-hardened veterans who have been playing for years, and hopefully this video gives you the leg up you need to combat that experience and helps you gain some skill along the way. Now, if I missed anything, please drop your loadout in the comments below and let me know what you prefer to run. Once again, guys, if you want to support your favorite all-American freedom-loving gamer, subscribe, like, and share this with your friends. Have a blessed day. This is Hit You Good, signing off. Get him.
Lock.
Oh, come on. Damn. Yeah! Ah, that's great.
Oh, God.
Woo.